Hey, how's it going, everybody? Before I get started, I just wanted to do a few quick announcements. I'll try to get it out of the way as quickly as possible. First up, I have made an official Reddit page for the channel. That way everyone has somewhere they can submit their own stories if they want them narrated. You can put in requests for specific video topics and just share and discuss creepy, paranormal, cryptid, monster-related type things. I've got the link down in the description for that, so if you want to join, just scroll down there and click. I also wanted just to say thanks to everybody that's been subscribing. I've got quite a few new subscribers this month. A lot of subscribers have been around for a couple years. Some of them are newer. I had to take a while off due to a very hectic personal life for a while, but I'm back trying to get the channel going full time, back to the state it was before. And I'd really like to get to around 10,000 subs by October, because it's Halloween season. I got a lot of stuff planned that I would like to do around then. So just keep watching, liking, commenting. All that really helps a lot. There's a few people that I see pretty much on every video, always in the conversations. That really helps the channel out a lot, and I appreciate it a lot. It makes the comments a lot funner place when people are having good discussions. But I know why you guys are all really here, so I'll quit boring you and get to the stories. I come from a small town in northern Arizona that's sandwiched between a reservation to the north and the U.S.'s largest Navajo reservation to the south. My high school being so small, one that has on average 80 students enrolled every year, we always had to travel several hours to play any other high school in any sport. This means we traveled a lot on the Navajo reservation. We also usually stayed at hotels where we would head out to play and come home in the morning, but this trip was a little bit different. I remember the basketball coach saying that the school didn't have enough money to put the teams up in a hotel that trip, so we were going to be on the road for quite a while. I was the only male senior to play basketball that season. We had just got done playing our game and were headed home on our bus, Big Blue. It wasn't long, maybe 2 hours of driving, before we had entered the res. By this time, everyone is asleep, with it being about 2 in the morning. When we had crossed the border to the res, I noticed the bus driver had sped up and was now going about 85 miles an hour. I thought this was a little weird because he never exceeded the speed limit, at least not in my high school career. For some reason, I couldn't fall asleep like the rest of my teammates. I just sat at the back of the bus, staring out across the desolate desert landscape that was lit up by the full moon. As I looked out, I could see a figure running towards the bus at an angle, and keeping up with the bus at 85 miles an hour. As the figure got closer, I saw that it was a humanoid form. As a matter of fact, it looked exactly like a human, only the face was painted half black and half white with glowing eyes, like a rabbit's eyes reflecting light from a spotlight. I immediately thought, it's a skinwalker. The skinwalker ran up to the edge of the road and just kept up pace with us. It was chucking sagebrush and rocks while staring at me. After I made eye contact with the thing, I could not look away. It was as if something was holding my head and eyes in place. The creature just smiled at me. This inhuman smile that went ear to ear, showing crooked, yellow, pointed teeth. I felt like I was going to throw up. I was panicking throughout the whole ordeal. The skinwalker started to crumple down on all fours, still keeping up with the bus. I could see its bones crack and reform. Hair started appearing all over the skinwalker's body, and in about 3 seconds was now a coyote, and it ran off back into the desert out of view. As soon as it was gone, I ran to the onboard bathroom and threw up. I didn't want to tell anyone for fear they would think I was crazy. I only confided in my Navajo friend. She told me that I needed to see the chief, who happened to be a friend of mine, and get a blessing. I saw him the next school day in the parking lot. He just came up to me and mumbled something in Navajo while waving a feathered scepter-like thing around me. Then he got back in his truck and drove away. To this day, I haven't seen another Skinwalker, but that's probably due to the fact that I moved away from the res. Now, if I do have to go south, I go around. Way around. My friend and I live in a block of flats, and we had gotten bored of just having our friends over at our place every weekend. We'd always have takeout, a few drinks, and watch a movie. Well, about a 5-minute walk away from our place, there is a massive forest. And I'm not sure who suggested it, but one weekend we all had plans to have our little meet-up there. The weekend comes around, and I've packed up some blankets, a 20 crate of beer, and some picnic food. Small sausages, crisps, and chocolate bars. We all suggest that we brought different drinks. I was assigned beer, one friend was going to bring some vodka, and some other people were going to bring mixers. There were 10 of us, 6 boys and 4 girls. We had all brought some kind of blankets or some sleeping bags to sit on, and my friend brought some lanterns and candles with him. We were all sitting there just getting comfortable and taking our jackets off when we heard a noise in the distance. Probably some birds or something. We must have scared them, my friend James says. We were all drinking my friend's vodka and mixing it with Coke when Emily noticed a strange smell. To start off, she thought one of the guys had caused it and grabbed her nose, shouting at Chris, who was sitting right next to her. But poor Chris didn't know what she was talking about, until he smelled it himself. Soon, everyone could. It was like something had rotted, swollen, and died. The smell would end up staying in my nose for the next few days. We're all grabbing our noses and waving our hands in front of us, trying to waft the smell away. A few minutes later, it had gone. I bet it's an animal that had been hiding in the sewers and had just come out, it being nighttime now and all, my other friend Lily is saying nonchalantly while opening a bottle of Coke. We kept hearing noises and bushes being rustled around us for the next hour. Occasionally, my friend Lisa would point to the trees, saying that she could see something looking at us. I remember one of the guys saying that it's just an animal looking for some of the food we were eating. The smell would come and go, and I figured it was a fox or badger that had been in the sewers. Lisa kept pointing at the woods, and this caused the guys in the group to go investigate, but they didn't find anything. Just that smell again. My friend stood up and threw some party sausages into the bushes, hoping that this would satisfy the animal there and it would go away. We had been drinking my beer when Emily said that she wanted another one. I grabbed the empty box to show her that there was nothing inside and she had drank all hers. You guys only asked me to bring 1 crate, I said, and that James would bring lots of vodka tonight and not to worry. I've only had 1 beer. There's 2 each and I've had 1. Either someone's playing a prank or someone has drank 3, Emily snaps back as she's holding up an empty bottle. This confused me and everyone held up their empty bottles. Everyone had 2, apart from Emily. Whatever, guys, I know someone has it, she's now saying while eating a sausage. A while later, the noises are back. By now, it's getting quite annoying. We're trying to have a good time, and this animal is clearly mad that it didn't get an invite to the party. That's when we heard it.
Only had 1 beer.
The voice sounded so harsh, dry and raspy, it was like someone was talking through a voice changer. It was very distorted. That was it for us. We grabbed the blankets and ran. We didn't stop until we made it to my flat security door. I quickly unlocked it and we shot inside. Leon starts shouting, "What was that?" as soon as I shut the door. I suggested that it was just some kids messing around. We realized that we had left our drinks and candles there as we were in a rush to get out. James went to our living room window to see if he could see where we were sitting in the forest. I went over to the window to shut it after James when I glanced down the road. Something was blocking the streetlights and slowly making its way to the block of flats. It looked exactly like Emily. It looked like she had fallen over and had mud all over herself. She was limping like she had hurt her leg, and she was holding her arm above her head. My stomach literally gave way as I turned towards Emily, now standing in my own living room. The look on my face must have said something because it brought everyone to the window. We all saw it. Emily started crying. We shut the curtains, and for the rest of the night we tried to calm Emily down, telling her she didn't even look like you. It's probably some girl who's coming home from a party and had to walk through the forest. We all knew this wasn't true. I just said it to try and make her feel better. I suggested watching a comedy film to take our minds off of it, and we did. We didn't hear or see anything weird for the rest of the night. I'll never forget that, though, and I've never been back to that forest area. I was a kid when this happened. My uncle and I were finishing up chopping and gathering firewood for my grandmother because it was getting dark. Driving back on a dirt road at about 30 miles per hour, give or take, I had this awful sense of being watched. Before I could turn to look out my window, my uncle quickly shouted, "Don't!" I completely froze. My heart felt like it was beating out of my chest, then completely stopped when I heard a tap on my window. My uncle sped up and was loudly praying in my native language. I don't know what was going on, and I thought it was over until our truck suddenly dipped down in the bed. My uncle started saying, "Look at me," and "Don't turn away," over and over. Then I heard it again. Tap, tap, but from the window behind me. It was getting harder for me to breathe and I wanted to cry. A minute or two passed and the truck dipped again. My uncle looked around inside. It was quiet besides the truck and the road. He looked at me and said, "We will ask your father to do a prayer in the morning, so the evil will forget our faces." I remember curling up on the seat and just staring at the radio, watching the time, listening to my uncle sing an old prayer until we got to my grandmother's house. I called my uncle because I had a nightmare about that night. We talked about it for a bit. He said I didn't see faces, just eyes, like brake lights you see on the road. It watched you. Before hanging up, I tried joking with him about it. "Why didn't you just step on the brake when it was in the back?" No laughter, just the pause. Because it wasn't alone. Ever since I could remember, I've loved hunting, squirrels, deer. It started as something my father and I did together. When he died, I couldn't help but see myself out there more and more. It was his favorite thing, and I was lucky enough to be a part of it with him. After the following experiences, though, I'm pretty scared to head back into the woods. It was a snowy Saturday morning. The sun had just come up that day, and I had been hunting squirrels. But the woods were eerily quiet and still. I sat silently under the skeleton of an old oak. Whether or not I saw or got anything didn't matter. The best part was the beauty. Waking up early and soaking it all in was worth every second of quiet and coldness. Everything was suddenly stirred to life by a gruff, grunting sound. The noise was similar to a buck call, but so much lower and rough. At first, I thought a massive buck was dying in the snow. Then it came again, but close enough to make my blood run cold. Whatever it was wasn't dying. It had moved an impossible amount of distance within those few seconds. I honestly had no idea what I was hearing. I did the only thing I could do. I sat still and tried not to breathe. Moments later, I saw something that has changed my life in the worst way possible. The head of a deer, with a sickly look and eyes with way too much white, appeared from behind a tree 15 yards in front of me. It was motionless. Worst of all, this thing was 9 feet off the ground. I've never seen any deer that tall. And this thing looked like it had just been in a fight while fighting off a deadly virus. It wasn't a pretty sight. When a clawed hand appeared just below it, I knew this was no deer. It sounds like something out of a children's book of stories, I know. I wish that's all it was. But these bony fingers curved around the trunk of that tree, disgusting nails sliding along the bark. The way its head was angled, it was as if it was just staring at me. Instinct took over. I ran as quickly as possible back to my truck. I've never ran so fast before in my life, but somehow I still began running faster when I heard that grunting again. Closer and closer it seemed to come, no matter how far I ran from that place. When I reached my truck, I opened and slammed the door shut. I started it and floored the thing. But before I took off, I made one mistake. I glanced back into the woods. As if it had been copy and pasted, that thing's decaying head and clawed hand were now protruding from a pine tree at the forest's edge. I'm sorry, Dad, but I don't know if I'll ever be able to go back there. My sighting happened in the summer of 2007. I was working the night shift at a surface coal mining facility. I used to drive a coal hauling truck, which was pretty huge and requires a series of steps just to climb into the cab. I just completed my pre-shift inspection and I noticed that my radiator was leaking. I called my supervisor and he asked me to drive the truck to the shop. The shop was about 6 miles to the north from the coal pits and was located in a remote part of the Navajo reservation. I drove the truck to the stop, called the shop foreman, and he radio requested that I park the truck at the south side. I parked and lowered the ladder and descended. I wanted to see how much fluid was left in the radiator, so I lowered the rear ladder and climbed into the engine compartment. The leak was pretty bad, so I climbed down the ladder, and that's when I saw it. It was the weirdest thing that I've ever seen. It was about 200 feet from me. It was walking around the other mining equipment, and it looked like a huge dog. The fur was beige in color, and it walked on all 4 legs, but it had no tail. The coat was pretty patchy, missing clumps of fur and bald spots. It smelled really bad, like a rotting roadside corpse. It had seen me and started to walk towards me. I pulled out my flashlight and shined it on it and noticed that the dog's eyes did not reflect any light. Its eyes were black and lifeless. Its head made a strange bobbing motion as it walked towards me. Its head was huge, like a bull mastiff. That was my first impression. I initially thought that this is a huge dog and is probably sick and hungry. It got to within 20 feet of me and I pulled out my pocket knife. I was ready to defend myself if this thing wanted to attack. I started to walk carefully towards the shop, and I kept my eyes on the creature. It followed me, paralleled my every step. The walk wasn't natural and fluid like a normal dog. It moved in an unnatural and jerky way. I walked about 150 yards to the shop, and it kept its distance. I finally got to the shop, and the creature stopped at the driveway of the bay doors. I went inside, and I told the foreman to come see this weird-looking dog. We both went outside to see it, and it was walking away from the shop and turning around the corner of another building. A few seconds later, my supervisor drove around that very corner, and I asked him if he had seen the weird-looking animal. He said no. He drove in the very direction it walked off towards. I described what I had seen, and my supervisor told me it was a skinwalker. That night, my supervisor made me ride with him throughout the rest of the night shift. He opened me up to a whole world and told me of his experiences while he worked at the mine. I haven't had any more experiences since that encounter, but I've seen strange, mysterious lights around the mining area and heard very many strange noises. This experience happened 2 days ago, and I'm still not completely sure what it is I saw. My dog was going crazy outside, as it usually does when something is out in the yard. I walked from the bedroom to the kitchen and turned on the floodlights outside. I was expecting a deer, as there are tons of deer near my house. I live in East Tennessee, by the way, near a state park with a lot of forests. But what I seen made my heart drop. It was a pale thing on all fours, and its eyes were glowing pretty bright. I'd never seen anything like it before, which is why I just call it a thin. Legs were so thin that it seemed like it had flamingo legs, and it was just strangely crab walking back and forth in my yard. I'd say it was 6 foot or more in length. The eyes looked as if they had a flashlight pointed at them and light was reflecting off, but it wasn't in any direct light. I was very confused and scared. Then, after going back and forth in my backyard, it moved to a hill beside my yard. It moved to the road on the hill, then across the hill to a neighboring field where the forest starts. It went back and forth between the road and forest for a few moments, then went inside. I haven't seen it since. It almost seemed confused about where to go. Everything I've read about these kind of creatures has mentioned no behavior like this. Also, along the thing's whole path, the whole time, its eyes were always pointed directly towards my house. They were never out of my view. No matter how far away it was, its eyes shined the same brightness. I don't know what it was for sure. A flesh skate, a skinwalker, or some other unknown creature. I just want some confirmation on this.